Welcome aboard, folks. My name's Bobby. I'll be your tour guide for our 45-minute river architecture tour. Folks, there are stairs at the back of the boat. There are stairs at the front of the boat. They all lead the same place, downstairs. Unless you are downstairs, in which case they all lead upstairs. Downstairs is where you will find the restrooms and the bar in the air-conditioned cabin. The bar is card only, no cash at the bar, card only. For now, this comes our safety information.
Safety equipment. Life rings are located on either side of the pilot house on the upper deck and forward tanks on the main deck. Life preservers are stowed in labeled storage lockers in the aft section of the vessel on the main deck and under some of the aft bench seats on the upper deck. Please do not tamper with them as they are for emergency use only. In the unlikely
Focusing too much, in his opinion, on making the outsides of buildings fancy and not enough on making the insides useful. So Mies van der Rohe went all the way the other way, designing those dark steel rectangular buildings, showcasing the practicality of his designs. Now we call that international style. Mies van der Rohe spent a lot of his career as a professor here in Chicago at Illinois Tech, but not all of his students ended up liking rectangles nearly as much as he did. On the right side of the boat, these two circular towers were designed by one of Mies van der Rohe's students. The two circular towers on the right are called Marina City officially. We normally call them the Corncob buildings. They're from 1968 by Bertrand Goldberg. Goldberg was inspired by nature. He said no square shapes in nature. He wanted round, natural-looking shapes for people to live in. Look at that parking ramp up to the right, the circular open-air parking structure. When Marina City went up in the 1960s, not very many people lived in the city center of Chicago. So, in order to attract residents to move downtown, Goldberg filled Marina City with its own amenities. It had its own grocery store, movie theater, bowling alley, skating rink, marina, and its own parking ramps. And folks, having seen those parking structures, you might have gotten nervous imagining cars falling right off and into the river. But there's no need to worry, that's only happened twice.
He's just kidding.
That's true. But both times were filmed stunts. Once was for Steve McQueen's movie The Hunter, and the other was for an auto insurance commercial. Now here on the right side of the boat, this red brick building on the right is the Reed Murdoch Center. 111 years old. It's by George Nimmons, originally a warehouse. It's an office building with some restaurants today. Now it is Chicago school style. Chicago school style is defined by being an early example of using load-bearing internal steel framing. The brick is just decorative. It is the steel within the walls that holds the building up. And that concept, fundamental to modern architecture of using internal steel framing, was first developed here in Chicago, primarily by architect William LeBaron Jenney. The first skyscraper was a William Jenney building, finished in Chicago in 1873. It was called the Home Insurance Building, designed by William LeBaron Jenney. And that first skyscraper was a whopping 10 stories tall. Unfortunately, it was torn down in 1930. The reason that it was the first skyscraper is not that it was the tallest building in the world, it never was, but that it was the first tall building to use internal steel framing. Okay, now folks, after this bridge, if you pay attention, I always try and point something out next that I think is worth it, but it is a little tricky, so you have to look right where I tell you. After this bridge, if you look on the right side of the boat closely here, and a bit above us, you might be able to notice that there's actually a stone building here. Thank you for the pity laugh. You right, extra large and in charge, that's the Merchandise Mart. I was just kidding. And the Merchandise Mart was actually the biggest building in the world by floor space in 1930, with 400,000 square meters or 4.2 million square feet of space. The building is Art Deco style, vertical lines, geometric ornamentation, getting narrower at the top with setbacks, all that together, that's Art Deco style. The Merchandise Mart was designed by Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White, and paid for by Marshall Field's department stores to consolidate their warehouses into one giant warehouse downtown on the river. It's a mixed office building today, and up till 2008, the U.S. Postal Service gave the Merch Mart its own unique zip code or postal code. That was 60654. Now this section of the river is significant. This is where the three branches of the Chicago River meet. The main branch is behind us, the north branch is ahead to the right, and the south branch is ahead to the left. This fork in the river is called Wolf Point. No one is quite sure where the name Wolf Point came from, but that name is actually older than the city of Chicago. I've always suspected someone probably saw a wolf at some point. Now, as we head south, I'm going to talk about two more things on the right, and then we're going to bounce to the left for a bit. But ahead to the right is this round glass tower with the arch at the base. The glass tower of the arch at the base ahead to the right, that is River Point. It's by Picard and Chilton from 2017, and it's LEED LEED Platinum certified. That is leadership in energy and environmental design. Two key factors in making it environmentally friendly is that it was constructed using a lot of recycled materials, and it uses river water to supplement its air conditioning. It brings water in, circulates it as coolant in the AC, and releases it back to the river cleaner than it found it. All right. Now ahead to the right is that glass tower with an alarmingly narrow base. After this bridge on the right, this is 150 North Riverside Plaza. It's by Getch Partners from 2017, and here's how it stays upright. It's got these diagonal steel beams above to the right, which focus its weight to its central core. You can wave to yourself up there too. And inside the top of the tower, there are 150,000 gallons, or about 450,000 liters of water in a mass damper. When wind blows against the building, the water in tanks on tracks is shifted against the wind to keep it steady. Now, it would stay upright without the mass damper, but it prevents it from swaying nauseatingly on windy days. And actually, mass dampers are pretty common. Lots of skyscrapers have some sort of shift cooling to help keep them steady from the wind. Now, Getch Partners were so pleased with those striking diagonal undersides that they used that idea in their newer buildings as well. Here on the left side of the boat, bouncing to the left, this is Bank of America Tower. It's brand new from 2021. And the shiny diagonal supports it has along the river are meant to unify it in style with the diagonal undersides behind us at 150 North Riverside. Both of them are by Getch Partners Architects. Now, after this next bridge on the left is one of my very favorites. After the next bridge on the left is the Civic Opera Building. The Civic Opera Building on the left is from 1928 by Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White. It is home of the second largest opera auditorium in the United States, 3,500 seats behind that big wall labeled for your convenience. Now, if you're looking up at the whole opera house, the whole thing resembles a giant throne. It has two armrests and a backrest, and the seat faces west. Never seen anyone up there before. Anyway, and the seat faces west. People have theorized that 20th century railroad businessman Mr. Samuel Insull, who paid for the building and lived in the penthouse at the top for a year until he went bankrupt, wanted the opera house to be a throne overlooking his railway business empire to the west while turning his back to New York, where he didn't get his dream job as CEO of General Electric. It's a great story, and it's not true. The truth is, Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White probably designed those narrow upper floor plans independently of Mr. Insull to allow for cross ventilation, letting the breeze easily cross through the windows. It's very important for air conditioning. conditioning, and those narrow upper floor plans allow for easy cross breezes. All right. Now, folks, we're going to look way up to the left. Most of you, some of you are already looking up there. Way up to the left, you'll see those two white antennas on top of that giant, dark steel tower. That is, of course, the tallest building in the city of Chicago. The name of it spelled W-I-L-L-I-S, pronounced Sears Tower. Its original name was Sears Tower. Its official name since 2009 has been Willis Tower, but in our hearts, for the most part, Willis Tower is still Sears Tower. It is the tallest building in Chicago. It was the tallest building in the world for 23 years, from 1973 till 1996. So, how tall is it? It is 1,454 feet, or 443 meters tall. 1,454 feet, 443 meters tall, and it has 110 stories. And none of those numbers include the antennas on top. The antennas do not count. They can be removed and replaced, and so the height is measured up to the flat steel roof. Now, the original tenant, company that paid for its construction, was, of course, Sears Department Stores and Catalogs. Sears moved out and sold the building in the 90s to private equity firm Blackstone. Blackstone sold the naming rights to Willis Insurance Group of London, England in 2009. So today, Sears isn't around much. Sears isn't around much. Blackstone owns the building, and Willis Insurance owns its name. And none of those companies is currently its main tenant. Does anyone know what the main tenant of Willis Tower is today? United Airlines. Headquarters of United Airlines is the main tenant of Willis Tower. There it is in front to the left, folks, all the way from the bottom to the top. It was designed by Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, with lead architect Mr. Bruce Graham and lead architectural engineer Dr. Fazler Rahman Khan. Folks, let's see here. Oh yeah, it was the tallest building in the world for 23 years. Now, that's a long time, especially when I tell you that in the 30 years since it was first surpassed, actually it's only 29, since 1996 when it was first surpassed, it's been surpassed over 20 times. It's not even in the top 20 tallest buildings in the world anymore, despite its 23-year reign as tallest in the world. So, how did that happen? Well, of course, it was an advancement in architectural technology. Newer, taller buildings use composite frames, which is generally steel with aluminum and concrete all used together to make lightweight frames. The Sears Tower, though, over 50 years old, is all steel, and it actually remains the tallest steel frame building in the world. Now, also, give me a guess. How many elevators does the Willis Tower have? Someone said 4. Someone says 20. Someone says 12. It's 107. There are 107 elevators in the Willis Tower. That's because very few of them go all the way from the bottom to the top. If you're heading to an office way up high, you'll likely have to ride 2 or 3 elevators. That relay prevents most of the space on most of the floors from being just elevators, which would make for some sparse, unappealing floor plans. All right, let's see here. And you know what, one more thing, folks. So Willis Insurance Group, who owns the naming rights to that building, they are actually an old English insurance broker. They were one of the companies that insured the Titanic all those years ago. Now, most of us do still call it the Sears Tower. Some call it the Willis Tower. Whichever you choose to say, my heart will go on. Right. I've forgotten how to do that joke properly, but it's all coming back to me now. Now, on the right side of the boat, This big brown granite building on the right is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Center. The CME Group, as it's known today, on the right side, is the largest commodities and derivatives exchange in the world by value of assets traded in it. Derivatives, that's a type of financial market. It's related to agriculture futures, but it's more than that too. I don't really know what goes on in the derivatives exchange. Whatever it is, this one's the biggest one in the world. The building itself is from 1986 by Fujikawa and Johnson. After the bridge on the left, bouncing to the left. On the left side of the boat, this limestone building is 2 North Riverside Plaza. It's from 1929 by Hollivard and Brute. It's Art Deco style, vertical lines with stair-stepping setbacks up toward the top. That's Art Deco. It's a mixed office building. And the plaza it has was the first public space along the river downtown that was designed to be public. It's the beginning of Chicagoans viewing the river as a public amenity and not just an industrial corridor. Now, up ahead to the left is that gray building with the crisscrossing white steel beams standing on the roof. Just after the bridge on the left, the gray building with the white steel beams standing on the roof. Those are trusses. The south end of this gray building on the left is built over a dense section of railroads leading to the train station. And those train tracks take up so much space that there isn't a lot of space left to hold the building up. So instead, the south end of the building is structurally hanging from the trusses on the roof rather than being supported from the ground up. The building itself is from the 90s by Perkins and Will. It's been owned and occupied by the Boeing Company since 2002, but it was originally built to be the headquarters of more of a down-to-earth company. Anyone know which? Morton Salt. Morton Salt is still based in Chicago, but not in the Boeing building anymore. Now, folks, after this bridge, if you look on the right, you'll get a quick view of one of my favorite little spots I hope you can try. The thing about Starbucks is that Chicago was the first city outside Seattle to have a Starbucks. We're the first step that Starbucks took on their journey to global domination. Now, on the right side of the boat, this red brick building on the right is the Great Lakes Building. It's from 1912, and it stands on the location where in 1860 there was a temporary convention center called the Wigwam, which hosted the convention that nominated Abraham Lincoln to run for president, right there where that brick building is today. All right in front of us is that tall glass tower. The tall glass tower right in front of us is the new Salesforce Tower. It is our newest complete office building. It's from 2023 by Clark Pelly Architects. And folks, the land that the Salesforce Tower stands on is basically where the first sort of business district of Chicago, back when we were a little frontier village, first was. Right there at Wolf Point, where today the Salesforce Tower is. First church was there, the first hotel, most importantly, our first bar. It was called the Sauganash Inn. And in the Sauganash Inn, in 1833, there along the riverbanks, the settlers here had a town meeting to decide for the first time what the official name of our newly organized township would be. What name did they choose? Chicago, not a trick question, it was Chicago. I'll let you know where the word Chicago came from though. So the word Chicago came from the Potawatomi. The Potawatomi were the native people that lived in this region for generations. They of course still live all around the country today, including here in Chicago. Now the Potawatomi encountered French explorers Louis Joliet and Jacques Marquette in the 1670s and told them that the river was called Chicago. Maybe. It was closer to Chicago, but our name has always been based on the Potawatomi name of this river. However, we might have looked into other names if we'd learned what that Potawatomi name actually meant. It meant the place of bad smells. That's true. It's because the river flowed through that swamp. It's because the river flowed through that swamp, and in that swamp grew an abundance of a species of little wild, anyone know? Onions or wild garlic. And in the summer heat, those little onions would ripen and rot and stink up the place, and that's how the Potawatomi referred to the river. So New York is the Big Apple, and now you finally know that Chicago is the smelly onion. All right, now on the right side of the boat below the street is of course the Chicago Riverwalk. Now the Riverwalk is only about 20 years old, 25 years old now I guess, and was principally designed by Carol Ross Barney, the entire 1.25 mile length of the Chicago Riverwalk, uninterrupted riverfront walkability. Carol Ross Barney is based here in Chicago. She focuses on landscape architecture and architecture for public use. Okay, now after the next bridge on the right, this limestone tower on the right is the LaSalle Wacker building. It's from 1930 by Hollibird and Root. It is Art Deco style. Art Deco is defined with vertical lines getting narrower up toward the top, and just like the Opera House, it has that big middle setback which created narrow floor plans to allow for cross breezes through the windows before it eventually had air conditioning. Okay, now after the next bridge on the right, ahead to the right is that glass tower with the decorative light-colored framing going all the way up to the top. The decorative white framing all around the corners up to the top after the bridge on the right. That is 77 West Wacker Drive. It's by Ricardo Bofill from 1992. It is postmodern style. Postmodern is a bit of a catch-all phrase, but really it means combining past with present. It's got Roman-style arches at the bottom, modern glass and steel throughout the building, and a Greek temple roof on top. Past and present together, that's postmodern style. And now for something completely different. On the right is the shorter concrete 55 West Wacker, a great example of brutalism. Brutalist architecture is not meant to be an insulting term. It gets its name from the French word brut, meaning raw, referring to the raw, unpolished concrete exterior. It's from 1968 by C.F. Murphy. All right. Ahead to the right, a good deal ahead, is a dark green tower with gold on top. Ahead, about past the next bridge, a green tower with gold on top. That's the Carbide and Carbon building. It's from 1928 by the Burnham brothers. It was built during Prohibition, when all alcohol was illegal in the United States. It is the only building in the city clad with green terracotta, and the gold on top is real gold leaf. Now, why did I mention the Prohibition thing? Well, it was designed with that dark green shape tapering up to a decorative golden topper to resemble a champagne bottle in protest to Prohibition. The building itself is from 1928. It's a hotel today. Now, moving backwards from the champagne bottle, up to the right, this big fancy building with the dome on top. The big fancy stone building with the dome up to the right, that's the old jeweler's building. It's from 1927, French Beaux-Arts style, with an ornate base, a simpler stack of floors, and an ornate top to match the base. That's French Beaux-Arts style, in that case with neoclassical ornamentation, the columns and temple situations up there toward the top. Now after the next bridge, this bridge on the left, here on the left, this is the Trump Tower, Trump International Hotel and Tower. It's the second tallest building in the city of Chicago, finished in 2009, designed by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, with lead architect, Chicago born and raised, Mr. Adrian Smith. Now here's what I want you to notice. The second highest roof of the Trump Tower is the same height as our first building, AMA Plaza behind us, and the lowest roof of the Trump Tower is the same height as the building with the clock tower in front of the boat. Those roof levels were intentionally designed by Chicagoan Adrian Smith to provide continuity with the building's older neighbors in the skyline. It was finished in 2009 and it's 1,388 feet or 423 meters tall. That includes the permanent decorative spire on top. According to the International Council on Tall Buildings, a real thing, they say that permanent spires count, whereas removable antennas do not. Also, it has 98 stories. After the bridge on the left, after the next bridge on the left, that limestone tower with vertical lines and a very ornate top is the Tribune Tower. In the 1920s, the Chicago Tribune held a contest seeking the most beautiful design for a new office tower to be their new home. They selected this neo-Gothic Art Deco style design submitted by Hood and Howells as the winner. The Tribune paid for the building's construction and stayed there until 2018. Now, still embedded in the walls of the Tribune Tower are pieces of the Berlin Wall, the Great Wall of China, the Alamo, the former World Trade Centers, many other newsworthy things visible and labeled on the outside walls of the Tribune Tower. Newsworthy chunks of things that journalists brought back with them to Chicago over the decades. The building is a condo building today, the Tribune Tower. Okay, we're going to bounce to the right just a sec. All right, so up to the right, immediately to the right, not really ahead of us, but directly to the right, far away, up high, is that tall, white, rectangular tower with the parallel lines of windows going vertically all the way from the bottom to the top. Up in the background, that tall, white rectangle, that is the Aon Center. The Aon Center was originally the Standard Oil building, finished in 1973 by Edward Durrell Stone. It's the fourth tallest building in Chicago, and it was the tallest building in the city for a couple months of 1973 till the Sears Tower surpassed it. Now, Edward Durrell Stone, the architect, originally clad that tall white building with imported Italian Carrara marble. Hey, that's expensive. Same stuff Michelangelo would carve with and made the whole building glisten on sunny days like today. But after 9 years, those plates of marble, 3/4 of an inch thick, started to crack and fall to the sidewalk. The city made the architects reclad it in a sturdier stone, and what's up there today instead is Carolina granite. The process of replacing the marble with the granite cost $80 million, half what it was to build the building. It was an expensive mistake, and it goes to show never take marble for granite. Yes. Now, folks, that whole story is true. It is not only the setup to a terrible joke. Everything I said is the truth. I'll admit that my delivery on it can be rocky, but it's important to me that you understand that my boss hates that joke. It takes real stones to tell it. Now, ahead and up to the right is a very tall blue glass wiggly tower. Very tall wiggly blue glass tower up to the right. That is the St. Regis, Chicago. The St. Regis was finished in 2020. It is 1,200 feet or 365 meters tall with 101 stories. It is currently the third tallest building in Chicago. It is currently the tallest building in the world designed by a woman. That woman is Jeannie Gang. Jeannie Gang is based right here in Chicago. Her firm is called Studio Gang Architects, and her hometown is not far away, Belvedere, Illinois. Now, way up near the top of the St. Regis, there's a gap, 2 floors seemingly missing. As the building went up, the architects saw that there was more potential, well, the steel frame was showing more potential to bend in extreme conditions than their original calculations had anticipated. Now, it was not going to fall over, that was not the issue. The issue was the steel frame was showing enough potential that it could theoretically bend enough in extreme conditions that it might possibly crack some windows, because glass can't bend as much as steel can. So in order to protect all the windows, even in extreme conditions, they made the building sway less by relieving the pressure, by leaving that creatively called blow-through feature up near the top. The elevators, utility shafts, and stairwells are still enclosed in the center of that space. The St. Regis is part hotel, part residential. The hotel rooms go for around $1,000 a night, so keep that in mind next time you visit. And the condos in the St. Regis will run you from $1.4 to $14 million for the penthouses. Okay, now let's talk about the river. In the city of Chicago's earliest days, we treated the Chicago River as any industrial city of the 19th century would treat a river. In a word, badly. We threw all of our waste, sewage, into the river. The river was an open sewer flowing into Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan is our source of drinking water. An open sewer flowing to our drinking water, now that sounds like a problem. And being Chicagoan, we worked hard to make it someone else's problem. And instead of solving the issue, we just made it go away by making the Chicago River the only natural river in the world permanently reversed by humankind. It's true, here's how. Not far to the west of the Chicago is the Des Plaines River, which is naturally separate from the Great Lakes and flows toward the Mississippi. To carry our waste away, we connected the Chicago to the Des Plaines by building a canal between them named the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. And at 3 a.m., January 2nd, 1900, we blew up the dams we had built separating the rivers from that new canal. The Chicago filled in the canal, connecting to the Des Plaines at a lower elevation than the lake. So with a new lowest point to flow toward, the Chicago River reversed, taking water for the first time from Lake Michigan to the Mississippi River Valley to the west. Not all of our neighbors were as pleased with us as we were with ourselves. In fact, our neighbors around the lake, the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Indiana, jointly sued the state of Illinois in federal court for draining the lake and proved that eventually our river would take so much water from the lake that parts of the lake would become shallow enough that they'd no longer be navigable. So we were forced to build directly in front of us the Chicago Harbor Lock. The lock is the only direct connection between the lake and river, but it still separates them with a series of closable gates built in the 1930s for one reason: to slow down the flow of lake water, entering the still reversed but much cleaner and healthier than it once was Chicago River. Now folks, take a moment to enjoy the view. We will get back to the tour in just a minute. Remember, do not stand on the chairs or the benches.
You want me to walk all the way